Charleston Harbor was under siege during the American Civil War, and the Union Navy had sealed the port so tightly that almost nothing could get in or out. In that desperate moment, Confederate leaders turned to a strange new weapon, a tiny iron submarine called the CSS Hunley. It was only about 12 meters long, built of iron, riding so low in the water that people could barely see it. Above the surface, there was only a small conning tower for the captain and one hatch that served as the only way in and out. At the front, a long spar held an explosive charge, a torpedo meant to be driven straight into an enemy ship. The Hunley already carried a dark reputation before its most famous mission ever began. The submarine had sunk during trials not once, but twice, and those accidents killed entire crews, including its inventor, H.L. Hunley. Even so, Charleston still needed a weapon that could break the blockade, and men were chosen for one more attempt. Among them was a young Confederate sailor named Jack Archer. With him were 7 other crewmen, the new Captain John White and Lieutenant Perry Sullivan, who would handle the steering inside the cramped iron hull. Jack Archer had been on short leave in Charleston with his comrades, trying to enjoy a few quiet hours over drinks in a cafe, when everything changed. A summons arrived from Admiral Luke McCartney, the innovative Confederate naval officer in Charleston, ordering him back at once. Archer and the others hurried to the naval barracks, where Captain John White and Lieutenant Perry Sullivan were waiting. On the parade ground, the 8 crewmen of the Hunley stood together and received their orders. A new Union warship, the USS Housatonic, had joined the blockade, and the Confederates wanted the Hunley to strike it. After the briefing, the men went to the barracks canteen, but nobody could truly rest. It was a very short night, filled with tension, fear, and the weight of what they had been asked to do. By 6 in the morning, the full crew was back on the parade ground. The torpedo was fixed to the long spar at the front of the submarine. Then Jack Archer and the other sailors climbed through the single opening into the narrow iron body of the Hunley. Inside, they sat shoulder to shoulder at a crankshaft because this early submarine moved by human muscle. The men turned the crank together to spin the propeller. Lieutenant Perry Sullivan took the rudder, and Captain John White sat in the small tower above them, watching ahead and passing directions. When the Hunley left Charleston Harbor, people lined the waterfront and cheered. From the shore, they could see almost nothing except the small tower slipping out across the water. It must have looked eerie, like a piece of iron barely alive, heading out toward a wall of enemy ships. Out on the blockade line, the Union crews did not fully understand what was coming. One captain on a Union blockading ship spotted the strange little tower and ordered his guns loaded. Salvos thundered across the water, but the Hunley was so small and so low that the shots missed. The tiny submarine kept moving closer and closer to the USS Housatonic. On board the Union ship, the captain finally realized that the object in the water was a real threat. He ordered his crew to fire, but by then it was too late. The torpedo on the Hunley struck the Housatonic below the waterline. A violent explosion ripped through the Union vessel. Then its ammunition detonated too, and the USS Housatonic sank within minutes. Only a small number of men survived. Back in Charleston, civilians watching from the quays saw the blast in the distance and erupted in cheers. For them, it looked like a miracle. A tiny secret craft had destroyed a large blockading warship. The Hunley then turned back toward Charleston, and for a moment, it seemed that the impossible mission had worked. But the return did not end in triumph. One of the Union blockade ships hit the little submarine. Captain John White was killed. Lieutenant Perry Sullivan was badly wounded. Several of Jack Archer's fellow sailors were dead or dying, and the damaged Hunley began to sink. In the chaos, Jack Archer managed to escape from the submarine before it went under. He was pulled from the water and rescued by the Confederate attack ship CSS Charleston. After the mission, Jack Archer was promoted to sergeant in the Confederate Navy. His story became tied forever to the Hunley, the small iron submarine that changed naval warfare by becoming the first submarine in history to sink an enemy warship in combat. It was a victory born from courage, fear, and terrible cost, and that is why people still remember the CSS Hunley today.